If you are learning Agentforce Revenue Management, there's one thing I want you to keep in mind. ARM is much more than Salesforce CPQ. By now, you've probably already seen plenty of LinkedIn posts telling you ARM is much more than CPQ 2.0. And they are absolutely right. Configuring products, determining prices, generating quotes are extremely important and integral capabilities of every CPQ solution. But Agentforce Revenue Management touches a much broader quote-to-cash ecosystem, including product catalog management, CPQ, contract lifecycle management, order management and orchestration, billing, payments, and several other capabilities. And here is where I believe there's an important distinction between learning a Salesforce product and becoming a strong ARM consultant. Knowing how to configure the technology is only one part of this equation. You also need to understand the business process behind the technology. Because eventually, you're going to sit in a requirements workshop with a customer, and they are not necessarily going to tell you what you want to hear. I need you to create a configurable bundle with these product options, apply an attribute based pricing adjustment, set up an approval when the discount exceeds 20%, and then generate a 3-year subscription with annual billing. No, that's probably not how the conversation is going to happen. Instead, they're going to be telling you,
Today, our sales reps spend way too long putting together a quote. We sell a complex mix of products and services, and it's not always obvious which options are even compatible. Pricing and discounts vary by customer, and anything above a certain threshold needs approval. We've also got multi-year subscriptions and recurring services that need to be billed up front, annually, or based on usage depending on what's purchased. On top of that, finance and credit need us checking creditworthiness and setting the right credit limits and payment terms before we commit to a deal. And we follow a 445 fiscal calendar and recognize revenue under US GAAP. Bottom line is this, Anand. We want this faster and easier for sales without sacrificing accuracy or compliance. And for finance, we need clean data flowing downstream so we can bill correctly, collect on time, and recognize revenue properly.
now that's the business talking. They are going to describe their business problems, their processes, their policies, and the outcomes they are trying to achieve. For example, sales might talk about how difficult it is to configure complex products, how long it takes currently for them to generate a quote, what discounts they can offer, or why they need 3 levels of approvals before they can give a customer a 25% discount. Sales operations or deal desk might talk about pricing policies, approval thresholds, margin protection, or how to make sure sales is structuring deals correctly and consistently. Credit management might ask whether a customer is creditworthy. Should we give them net 30 or net 60 payment terms? What credit limit should they have? Or should we require some or all of the payments upfront before we fulfill the order? The legal and contracts management team might talk about contractual obligations. What terms have we agreed to? What service levels are we committing to? What happens if the customer terminates early? How do we handle amendments, renewals, or changes to the contract? Order management and operations might be concerned about what happens after the deal is signed. What exactly did the customer purchase? What needs to be fulfilled? Does something needs to be physically shipped? And does a software license need to be provisioned? Or does a service need to be activated? Billing might talk about invoicing, billing schedules, adjustments, credits and debit notes. Should the customer be billed upfront, monthly, annually, based on a milestone or based on actual usage? Accounts receivable might be asking, how much does this customer owe us? When is the payment due? Has the invoice been paid? And how much is currently outstanding? Dunning and collections might be concerned about what happens when the customer does not pay on time. When should reminders go out? When should an overdue account be escalated? And how do we ultimately convert that outstanding receivables into cash? Finance and accounting might talk about accounts receivable, journal entries, the general ledger, reconciliation, and how all of these commercial transactions eventually make their way into companies' books and financial statements. And then, revenue accounting may introduce an entirely different set of questions. When have we actually earned the revenue? How much of it can be recognized now? How much of it remains deferred? And should that deferred revenue be recognized over the next 12 months, 3 years, or based on when specific performance obligations are fulfilled? And suddenly, terms like deferred revenue, performance obligation, ASC 606, IFRS 15 start entering the conversation. Now, imagine being an ARM consultant sitting in that room. You don't necessarily need to be a lawyer, or you don't need to have an accounting background. And you certainly don't need to become an expert in every single one of these areas. And when you look at ARM through that lens, you realize there are a lot of questions worth answering. What exactly is quote to cash? What happens after a quote is accepted? What's the difference between bookings, billings, collections, and revenue? What is order management? What is order decomposition, orchestration? What is usage based billing? What are amendments and renewals? What is revenue recognition? What exactly is accounts receivable? What is general ledger? Why should an ARM consultant at least have a general understanding of all of these concepts, including terms such as ASC 606 and IFRS 15? Where does an ERP fit into the quote to cash architecture? How does all of these systems, processes, and teams ultimately work together? These are not just accounting or finance concepts, these are quote to cash concepts, and understanding them can actually help you have much more meaningful conversations with your customers, be it sales and sales ops teams, legals, order management, billing, finance, accounting, and many other stakeholders you will encounter during an ARM implementation. And that's exactly why I'm starting this new series at GoToMentor, the Quote-to-Cash and ARM Playbook with Anand Ramakrishna. I have put together topics covering Agentforce Revenue Management and the broader Quote-to-Cash ecosystem around it. And a lot of what I will share in this series also draws from my 22 years in IT and consulting, including years of working closely with sales, sales ops, billing teams, finance leaders, and CFOs on complex quote to cash transformation programs. Objective is simple. I want to help you become a stronger, more well rounded ARM consultant. Someone who understands not just the technology, but the business processes, systems, and stakeholders around it. Someone who can walk into requirements workshops, follow conversations across different parts of the code to cash lifecycle, ask better questions, and understand how those requirements ultimately translate into the solution you're designing. Now, that's the expertise I want us to progressively build through this series. We'll start with the fundamentals. What is a business process? What is code to cash? What systems and stakeholders are involved? And where does Agentforce Revenue Management fit into this entire ecosystem? From there, we'll go deeper into ARM concepts themselves. Product catalog management, configurations, qualification and disqualification, pricing and quotations, contract lifecycle management, subscriptions, amendments, renewals, asset lifecycle management, order management, billing, usage management, payments, dunning and collections, and so much more. As you grow from understanding these ARM functionalities into thinking like a solutions architect, we'll move into the financial side. Accounts receivable, credits management, the general ledger, revenue recognition under ASC 606, and finally, architecture and integrations. How does ARM connect with ERP, the tax engines, the payment systems across the enterprise, and what it means for ARM to have an API first, composable architecture? That's a lot to cover. Whether you're relatively new to Quote-to-Cash or you've been in the space for several years, my goal is that there's always another layer for you to explore. Because understanding features isn't the same as understanding why it exists, what problem does it solve, and how it connects with everything upstream and downstream. That's where deeper subject matter expertise starts to develop. So, whether you are a CPQ consultant transitioning to ARM or considering transitioning soon, a Salesforce professional starting your revenue management journey, or a seasoned architect looking to go deeper into the quote to cash ecosystem, this playbook is for you. We'll be publishing a new topic regularly, and you'll be able to follow the series right here on LinkedIn. We'll also be building the complete Quote-to-Cash and ARM Playbook video library on our Go-to-Mentor YouTube channel. I'll see you in the next episode of Quote-to-Cash and ARM Playbook with Anand, a Go-to-Mentor series.